Okay, it's noon, so we're going to get started. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Cracker Barrel session. I'm Susan Kipke with the Governmental Affairs Committee of the Metro Area Chamber of Commerce, and I will serve as moderator. These sessions are intended to provide information to the public. Any opinions expressed here today are not that of the Mitchell Area Chamber of Commerce. Today we will hear from our District 20 state legislators, Representative Lance Koth, Representative Paul Miskimmons, and Senator Josh Klum. Before we start, we would like to say thank you to the City of Mitchell for the use of their facilities and enabling us to broadcast live over their YouTube channel. We are also broadcasting via Facebook Live on the Mitchell Chamber of Commerce account. This session is scheduled for 1 hour, so I will describe the format. Each legislator will have 2 minutes to give a brief overview of the session or to talk about a particular item they see of interest. We will then move to questions from the audience. Audience, please keep your questions brief and to the point. We only have an hour and want to get as many questions from the audience as possible. When asking a question, please go to the podium. Not the podium. Please go to the microphone and speak clearly, stating your name and then the question. Legislators will be given ample time to answer each question, but please be mindful of the other legislators. We will end the session with closing comments from each legislator, which will be 2 minutes each. We ask that you be respectful of one another and that audience members limit side conversations. Please silence your cell phone. Let's get started. Representative Koth.
Gonna try to squeak out. I lost my voice this week. And what I'd like to say briefly is, I think the session is going fine. I'm on appropriations. We're working diligently. Everybody is on balancing the budget, and we've got a fair amount of disagreement. But we will come together this week. As far as who's going to get the funding. I would mention that there is not enough money for everybody, and we'll probably get into that a little bit. As questions are asked, we try to answer. Thank you for coming. I will do my best.
Thank you, Representative Miskimmons.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the session. Thank you for hosting this. It's been a very busy session. It's been one that the People's Legislature has responded. In South Dakota, we take the bills that are presented to us. Leadership doesn't sort out the bills and decide which ones we act upon. So in South Dakota, everybody gets their voice. On 2 occasions this year, I've gone over 600 emails. The bills have brought great response and great interest from the public. And that's been a privilege. It's been difficult to keep up with them at times, but we've gotten along with each other on both sides of the aisle and in both houses. It's been very good and cordial, working through our legislation with respect for one another. And it's been a privilege to be there and be part of it. I will say that in my second year, I've grown to have a far greater appreciation of the process. And on numerous bills this year that have been contentious or that got vetoed last year, such as the HEP bill, we're working through it as part of the process. And I'm grateful that we have a two-house system because I think it serves the people better than a unicameral legislation. So it's been fun to be part of the process and to work with the people of South Dakota.
Thank you, Senator Klum.
Well, good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon. Thanks for coming again. As was previously mentioned, the session is wrapping up. Money will be the final thing we talk about, as it is every year. As Representative Koth said, there probably won't be enough for everyone. But what we'll come down to is, do we keep, and this is still in negotiation, do we keep the big three, as we call providers, say employees in education, at the same percentage increase, or do we split them up? So that's what some of the negotiations will wrap around how we deal with that. Aside from that, personally, I've been dealing a lot with this hemp bill, and the governor said she wanted it wrapped up at the beginning of the session. Well, guess what? It's not. Regardless of what you think about it, whether we should do it or not, it's probably one of the last things we deal with. It's going to become a negotiating tool. Most big things usually become. We'll see what happens. Last I heard, the governor's coming forward with another amendment. Put some money into it. Probably less than what she initially proposed with the whatever million she's wanted. So we'll see where that goes. No, with that whole issue. I've really come down to thinking we have these constitutional amendments that are going to be on the ballot, legalizing medical marijuana and the industrial hemp program. And regardless of what you think about marijuana, whether you think it should be legal or not, I don't think it should be in the Constitution. So part of my desire for passing this now is CBD oil legalized, which I think takes a lot of the wind out of the sails of people wanting medical marijuana. So I have zero desire to see legalized marijuana of any sort. But I think at this point, some people say passing a hemp program pushes us down that path. Some people are saying that if we don't do this, it also pushes us down the path. We're kind of in a catch-20 there. That's really what's been taking a lot of my time, simply because I'm the prime sponsor of it in the Senate, and so while I'm not in appropriations, while I'm not in those negotiations, this is kind of what is taking up the last few days of my session. So with that, take questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question?
Spanos here, not just talked on the state level, but this has been talked out at the national and international level. What is the state doing in regards to the COVID-19 crisis and stuff? Will there be any task forces set up? What's state going to do? What's state doing right now? And Lord forbid, there's a case, here in South Dakota, because my son told me not to come to Omaha because that's treatment center, and I'm trying to battle bronchitis, so.
I know the governor is aware of it. The Department of Health has made plans. Really, the media is blowing it out of proportion. While it is serious, it needs to be taken seriously, as with any illness. The flu has killed more people this year so far than the coronavirus. Wash your hands, maintain proper hygiene. I think we'll be okay. But I know that they've been briefed on it. But we as legislators have not, and there's no plans for any special funding to fight it. This time that I'm aware of.
It's not something that we deal with in our everyday activity. The Health Department is working in conjunction with the federal level. Testing units are supposed to be arriving here in South Dakota. Do all you can to wash your hands and avoid people that have been compromised. Lance has got a letter here. There's been a number of steps implemented. Four of them here. From the Alston Risden, Secretary of Health, Commission and Task Force developing action plan, communicated with healthcare providers, capacity, and launch COVID-19 website. The best of our knowledge, that's what's happened so far in South Dakota.
Representative Coates, do you have anything to add? Okay. Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Joel Allen. Dakota Wesleyan University, a religion and philosophy professor. I just want to start by thanking you for your service to our state, your time and effort, and I really I don't know all of you, but I know Paul and Josh, and I just think you're great people, and I really appreciate the service you provide to our state. I do want to talk briefly about House Bill 1212. Small potatoes. I know it's not, but it is a House bill that I've gotten involved with for 2 years. we've tried to get clergy added to the list of mandatory reporters of suspected cases of child neglect and abuse.
And I've had
a personal reason to be involved in this. I had to report.
I was serving a church a number of years ago and had to report someone that had sexually attacked a child in our 16-year-old in our church. And they were a deacon in another church, and the pastor was a good friend of mine, and he called me up and really put pressure on me. I was in a different state, and it was state law there that I had to report. And I was so glad later when I realized it was state law, I went ahead and filed the report, and was very glad that I did, and I'm still glad that I did. But in this state, clergy are not mandatory reporters of affected cases, and they have to be suspected cases. It's not just some possibility a child is being neglected or abused. You have to have reason to suspect. And so it got voted out again by bigger numbers than last year. This is our second year to bring the bill, and so 30 to 35 against. And as I understand, it was the Family Heritage Alliance position against it on First Amendment grounds, and I couldn't figure out why the First Amendment has anything to do with this. This is not an impingement of religion. If the bill passed, no one's religion is going to be. This is the law in North Dakota, and they have plenty of religious freedom up there. It's not like you cross the border, you don't have religious freedom anymore. So 45 states have clergy as mandatory reporters right now. And so I would think that if there was a First Amendment problem, somebody would have noticed. And there has not been a challenge, to our knowledge. There's not been one challenge brought in the 45 states where someone brought a successful First Amendment challenge against this bill. So I think we're on solid ground as far as First Amendment. Of all people, I'd be the last person. I'd be the last person to want to impinge on the First Amendment. But I couldn't see the argument that Family Heritage Norman Woods provided. That he just seemed to say that it was an impingement of First Amendment privilege. I never really heard an argument that how it was. I just wanted to throw it out there. Do you see there being a First Amendment problem with this? My second question is like, where would you suggest we go from here? We tried twice, and it seems kind of non-controversial to me, but it has ended up being controversial. So, is there any reason to bring it back? Next year, what would you do if you were in my situation? You know the process. I don't want to be like, oh, that guy again. So I just want to throw that out and see. Thank you for your service.
I'll speak to that. I missed my only day of the year or of the last 2 years, last Thursday, because I was ill. But I would have stood on the floor and spoken in favor of this bill and voted in favor of this bill. And I'm a Methodist individual, and Bishop O has come out in favor of this. That's our Methodist bishop for North and South Dakota. And so I would have stood in favor of this bill. In addition, the dental hygienist this year asked to be part of the mandatory reporters. And as a dentist, I supported them also on this. So it wouldn't change that vote by at least one. And I have no idea whether my speaking would be different with any other votes. But to my understanding, there may be a Catholic influence in this bill to violation of the confession, and so that may have a factor in some of those votes. Well, I wasn't there that day, so I didn't get that amendment, but that's the best of my knowledge on the bill.
Squeak something out. I voted against it. You're asking me a question that I can't answer. As far as what should be done next year. My fundamental plan, how I looked at it is, I guess I've always felt that clergy will do the right thing. And I understand you've got personal past that indicates that it would have made it a lot easier. And I can understand that. But I do struggle with laws forcing that particular profession into reporting fundamentally, what, it'll be back. And maybe a better deal. I mean, if I can, how I look at it, but, so I can't answer your question, and I understand your situation, and I understand that side, but as was mentioned, the confidentiality in some cases of the spiritual side of our life. I'm not going to say Trump, but oftentimes it will because of unintended consequences if it would automatically be reported because of the law. Because I just trust clergy. That's my reasoning.
And mine would be very similar. Vince had asked me to carry this a couple years ago, and I looked into it, and that kind of came to me as I started talking with colleagues. It came up that clergy have that special privilege, I think. And so, well, I also understand what you said, that they will do the right thing. I do know that there was a Catholic influence from the confessional, as you pointed out, your amendment did address that. I still think the lingering fear every time the government starts stepping too far forward into that arena is going to be pushed back.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hello, gentlemen. John Claggett from Davidson County Commission. Just want to speak a little bit on 157. It's been a hot topic, and I want to thank you all, especially Josh. You worked with the governor's office to make changes. Some of the changes have been very good, and I'm happy with that. Question in terms of mandating quorum and mandating passage of conditional use permit. And the question I have there is, most of you know, our standard was a little higher than that. We went to supermajority on all of our pieces, and it does create another bar to make sure that they get their. We have been very consistent in the county in passing many of those because of that. And my whole point there is this the first time the state has mandated quorum and mandated passage by simple majority? The reason I say that, have some things in place, and I'll go back to my common theme that I've shared with you before about sales tax for counties. If we were to get that, we would have to go to that higher majority. Is this then going to translate eventually to say all votes will be majority votes? Because by the legislature many years ago, because the very strong importance of our pocketbooks. We understand that. But it is, and so I'm just wondering if there's ever been any conversation about that. Does this change the bar all the way across?
I would say no. There's been no conversation about changing anything else in the future. But even as mentioned, and when we were dealing with the permitting issue, majority votes.
Yes.
And so I think that's why some of the rationale came for making this a simple majority vote.
Yep.
Throughout South Dakota, the zoning boards are all over. West of the river, there's hardly any zoning boards whatsoever.
Yes.
And in eastern South Dakota, Potter County doesn't have a zoning board. And the constitution or the composition of those boards is different in different counties. But and I'm aware in Han County, is that Miller? If I'm correct, in that county where Miller is present. But probably the most experienced expert in the House side of this legislation is County Commissioner from Han County, and Representative Wagness, J.D. Wagness, is new this year as a replacement because of movement over to the Senate. But he has lots of experience on the zoning board. And in their zoning board, they have 2 members from the community of Miller, and they have 3 from the rural areas. And the supermajority created a hindrance a lot of times because the 2 community members stuck together on all the votes. So you can argue each side of this issue in their county, this will be an advantage that the majority rules, not the minority.
Yep, and I fully get all that. We've had discussions about that. But my point was we have 5 districts, so we have representatives from each district. If we were at large, that'd be a little different ballgame. But the whole point there is that's why I wanted to make sure all the districts got involved in it, because any CUP will eventually involve the other districts inadvertently. So, and I thank you for doing all the stuff you're doing. And Paul, you're exactly right. I ran into a lot of counties that don't have anything in place. Hopefully this puts everything in place and they can move forward. We want to grow. We want to have ag. We want to have the other things happen. But it's just a little disconcerting on me, on my side, when the state tells us how we're going to run it. They aren't changing our setbacks. We do that. That's where the local control piece comes in. But when you hear people talk about local control, there's 2 sides to that. And the stipulations we can have by setbacks, et cetera, that we control. That's local control. But the other side, now we've kind of moved the pendulum just a little bit. So we can live with it. But I just want to share that.
Well, if I can maybe answer from my view, we're going to hear this on the House floor Monday.
Yeah.
I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, I'm on the fence for those reasons. I've received a whole bunch of emails from a lot of people that are saying, please don't vote for this, other than Yankton County.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you know, I won't say they've got problems, but this would really help them. And I get that. My view right now is I really don't. I think this has been moved too quick, too fast. And there's a lot of locals that have not had a chance to catch up and fully understand what it's going to be. You may see this. The dark blue would be the counties that don't have zoning.
Yeah.
You know, folks, that's, I don't know, 1/3 of the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take them time to retrofit into this new law,
Yes.
I feel. So at this point, I don't think it's ready for prime time. I think it's a great idea. We need to move in that direction, but I really think we need to hit the pause button and sit back and make sure that these folks, because it's statewide,
Mm-hmm.
these folks have a chance to catch up.
Yep.
And figure it out, because there's a lot of scrambling right now that's going on, and I fear that it's going to fit well in industrial development, and we all want that. However, that isn't where it really, that's not where our priorities need to be at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've listened to the testimony. I know Josh has done a lot of work on it. The governor has done a lot of work on it. A lot of good stuff, but I'm not ready for it at this point.
My fervent hope is those blues all get in the game, and we need to expend it. Just makes tons of sense. I could have lived even better without the quorum and the passage piece to that, because that changes things a little bit. But the process is important, and I just thank the governor and the rest of the group for pushing that, because we haven't done that in the past, and we should have done. So, thank you.
Quick question for you. In your memory, if this would have been in place many years past, would it have changed any outcomes?
Not at all, because we've always gone over that. We're told now to lower our standard, so that's a little different than most counties.
Do you think with this you'll revisit any of your current ordinances you have in place,
or
anything like that?
Well, we wouldn't revisit that. We need to change our ordinances to reflect what the governor says we need to do. So that's a little different.
But the only thing that would reflect is the change in the voting majority. correct?
No, it wouldn't change ours because we've already superseded that.
Right, but you have to bring it back to match this law.
Yeah, we would incorporate it,
Okay.
wrap it in. So,
But as far as any other setbacks or any other way you do?
no, setbacks, from what I understand, we're free to do whatever we need, and that's the local control piece. But I wanted to stress that because when you hear on the radio and newspaper or whatever else of local control, it's several prongs to that, and that's what gets confusing, especially the Yankton issues. So, thank you all. Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? We have time for a couple more. Yes, JP.
Here comes what? Hardball? No. Knuckleball. No, knucklehead. That's what my dad called me. Anyway, during Thursday's Republican Leadership News Conference, I believe it was Senator Bolin who brought up the idea of all legislative sessions being 40 days long instead of fewer days every other year. Would you favor that idea if it would allow more time to accomplish work, or what are your thoughts on limiting the number of bills then allowed to be introduced in each chamber in a session?
I guess I haven't thought about it a whole lot. I know we're always crunched for time. I mean, and because we're there, and this is more of an overall synopsis of the legislature, we're there for such a short amount of time. It takes us the first half of the session to get caught up, what happened in the last year, how much money we're going to have, all that kind of stuff. And that's what the Appropriations Committee spends all their time doing while the rest of us go about and dabble in other bills and this and that. Sometimes I will think more time will just create more time to get into trouble. And then sometimes I think more time would give us more time to let the legislature have more of a hold of the reins of the direction of the state, which ultimately means the people have more direct reins. So I can't really answer that clearly. I haven't really formed an opinion because some days I wish it was over now. And then some days like, no, we could do a lot better if we just had more time to get everyone on the same page and at least give a vision instead of being a reactionary legislature. Could we be a visionary legislature and see into the future maybe? Maybe that's not even our role. I'm not sure. It's just something that's always constantly being talked about at the legislative session. So, you know, I know the Constitution allows 40 days maximum at this point. So anything we do change would have to be a vote of the people, and I just don't see the people saying, hey, let's have government be in session longer. I just don't see it happening this year or ever.
Yeah, I would agree with. I'm going through puberty. I don't think we need 40 days. 36 is fine. I can joke. What else is there to do in Pierre? You just as well be working. But I think that we do. If it's 36 days. We have our calendar, we know when we have to get things done, and we get it done. We just make sure it happens. If we had 40 days, we would do the same thing, and we would work 40 days and think we were overworked. There's talk that in some states, they go every other year, and there's talk about that. How did you do that? Well, you figure it out. So I believe that our current, this year, and this is my second year, this year, 36 days, plenty of time. I'm not working any less. I'm not working any longer. We're still getting it done. It just forces deadlines, which I think is important when you're dealing with folks like us.
It keeps us working. Oh, thank you, Josh. It keeps us working, but I think it works pretty well for the amount of work we currently deal with.
Then to follow up on that, getting things done, what about limiting the number of bills allowed to be introduced in each session?
I would probably be pretty opposed to that, because when you limit our ability to bring legislation, you're limiting yourselves to change something you feel important about. So Well, we have limits out, we have deadlines to meet bills, and then after that, we have limits of 3 bills, and then you're done. There is, if you have the time to do that much work, go for it. But the more bills you have, the more spread out you get, and the less good attention you give to the bills you have. That's what I found. So I think, I've seen some legislators carry upwards of 10 to 15 bills, and they are constantly running, and they're hardly ever in their own committee because they're pitching another bill in another committee. So I usually, 3 to 5 is what I try to aim for. And I had 3 this year, and only 1 made it through. So it's pretty good.
There's someone that gave me some good advice before I went to Pierre. That don't try to be an expert on everything, but be an expert on something. And there are those that are an expert on every bill, every situation, everything that's hanging on a tree they're going to grab, and they're going to run with it. And then there are others that will, and I'm saying they're more experienced, but there are legislators that I've come to respect that they say no. They learn how to say no. That is not a bill that is worth putting our state government through this process. It's not worth it, or it needs more work. So I'm not in agreement of limiting, but I do believe that after a while, some people will learn the process and limit themselves. That's how I think it should work, rather than set rules, statutes, or laws, or whatever. Say, well, you've got 3 bills, no more. I'm not that kind of a guy.
I like the process as it is, so I think listening more in our early years of service is good advice, and speaking less, but learning all you can while you're there, which in these first few years, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. So it's a privilege to be there and learn so many things about our state, but to limit ourselves and how much we try to make a difference as beginners in the process, I don't think is a good plan for us.
Thank you. Mr. Olson.
Thank you. I'm Ed Olson, retired. I'd like to kind of follow up with JP a little bit. First of all, and most people know, you're talking about really organizational. Is that better? I was in my principal mode. You're talking about organizational things. First of all, we already touched about the point. Any person can bring a bill. You all 3, you can bring 58, you can bring 2, you can bring 1. Or, as appropriately said or mentioned, you don't have to bring any. Or you could say to the person that comes to you, I don't want it. So you have that end of it, but the idea of what I've really enjoyed about my 45 minutes here is that these issues have not changed. We have rural electric, municipal electric. We have zoning. I heard them 30 years ago. So there's the reason why you go in every year, because you're going to make mistakes. And that's why we have amendments. Well, the thing that I'm, and this is probably more of an editorial comment, forgive me, but there's just some things that are taking a lot of time that are really private kind of things. There was one of your individuals that was talking about what a representative democracy is, and people don't know, the state knows better, and therefore we shouldn't have sports betting because it's not good because of video lottery. And no data, no support. Smoking's bad for you too. So we're getting into this idea that I'm gonna make some decisions for you, right? And it's irrelevant how you feel, because I feel that way. So, down your throat. You know, why would these, well, I know why, but it's just, it's too bad. It's a waste of time.
Well, I have one that I'd like to know if anybody has any opinions on. House Bill 1235. Anybody know about the vaccination bill or have any opinions? I got over 600 emails on the vaccination bill. So this bill was mistitled. It was about a medical freedom bill, but it was titled anti-vaccination bill. And it brought great response from our healthcare institutions and from the health department and from the highest levels of protecting the general welfare of our public. And so the testimony, which normally is about 20 minutes per side, we gave each side 40 minutes, and there were at least 8 to 10 speakers who didn't get to present on the issue. It wasn't difficult to vote to protect public health and continue to have vaccinations, but it was an important discussion because there have been children and families who have been harmed through the rate of vaccination or because the children's immune response was compromised at the time they got their vaccinations. So if you say it's 1 in a million that are hurt by vaccines, that wouldn't work in South Dakota because there are far, far more people in that room wearing white shirts that said, my child was hindered or hampered for their future welfare, and that I lost my child after vaccination. But it was a fair discussion because the other side stood up and said, my sister died because she wasn't able to get her vaccination and acquired whooping cough and lived for 17 years on an iron lung and died a tragic death. And soon after that, the parents divorced due to losing the child. And 7 weeks later, the mother committed suicide. So this was an extremely emotional discussion. And all that I hope comes from this, there are 2 exemptions to the vaccination program. One is for religious objection. The second is for medical compromise. And my only hope is that we can learn from this and more carefully so that those exemptions help serve the people better and we don't have these tragic outcomes which do happen right here in our state. So I'm totally for the vaccination program, but to look at those exemptions when it might maybe slow them down for some individuals with compromised immune systems so that we have fewer of these tragic outcomes and our system of health care serves the public better.
Thank you. I would like to ask how you felt about the new electronic system to carry bills.
I'll take that. I loved it. I know a lot of people struggle with it at the beginning, but really lately, last few weeks, I haven't had to help many of my colleagues. At the beginning, I helped an awful lot of colleagues. But as we got used to it, I figured we'd get the hang of it. I don't think it's shut anyone out of the process. Does it make it so I don't have to go up to someone and ask them to sponsor a bill? Yeah, it does. But if I really care about my bill, I'm going to go out and talk to you and say, oh, hey, and I've sent you an invitation to sponsor it if you'd be so willing to. So great. I mean, you still can do that. And you still should if you really, really care about your bill. The bill one of the bills I carried, I didn't really care about it. It was something I thought needs to be done, but live or die wasn't high on my priority list. So I just put the invitation out there to all 104 other legislators, and I probably got way more sponsors than I would have taken time to go get. That all being said, what's the point of sponsorship now? That is the other thing. It really, all it does is I can look at a bill and say, oh, I see Representative Coe sponsored this bill. It probably means it's okay because I trust Representative Coe. Or I should go ask them about it, or I could go ask the Prime about it. But if I don't, they have their description there, I can read about it, and it's really quite a time saver in my opinion. Because Capitol's a big place. I can go for most of the week and not see these 2 guys, even though we're under the same roof. You know? So I think in some ways it saves time. If you still want to dig into it and you can certainly do that. Either go find or electronically do it in the system. We can send them a question about this and get it. So I think it works really good. But that's just my opinion.
I think it works really well also. I'm not as techy as my two colleagues, and they know that. But it's been a learning process, but I can't commend the LRC enough for their efforts. We could have hired this, and I believe the cost was how many $1 million?
The LRC, by creating this program in-house, they saved us upwards of $6 million from what they would have spent going.
Their efforts are incredible on behalf of serving us, and this is going to be a wonderful system. It's a learning curve, and if I would say the one, and the dinosaurs, which is the older representatives, and many of them who have been there for years, this created a challenge over the old paper system. But, and the one thing that might have been lost, and Josh alluded to it, is that in the old days, they'd bring the paper bill and sit with you and ask for your support and explain the bill to you. Now you get an electronic request, and if they don't have the time to get to you, you may sign on to something you didn't understand nearly as well as you did in the old days. So as to the system working, it's wonderful, and their efforts have been incredible. But it's still a learning curve, and it makes us work to get there if we want to support, to create the direct communication. Some can communicate effectively with emails and text, but other times it's good to be face-to-face in understanding a bill.
I'm offended you call me old, but I do like it. And the reasons why is I can be in my motel room at night and I can read bills. I probably could not do that had it not been online. Secondly, oftentimes, as Senator Olson mentioned, there's an amendment made on the floor, made in committee. That is almost not immediate, but that comes online so I can read it, and that's reviewed. So, and technology there, and I and a number of others, and even Paul, have adapted to that. So I can get a lot more done via this little machine. I have no idea. There's a lot of people smart, know how to get all this information there at the right time, odd hours. And secondly, we can still go to one another. We are still in the same building. And if we feel the need to go, and I need to visit with Senator Klum about his bill, I can still look him up. We still have that opportunity, and that does happen. We still talk. We don't hide behind these machines. It's doing well, and they've done a wonderful job of keeping it up.
Good.
I could just add to that a little bit. You know, it's really alluded, but it does make us more mobile. I can sit here right now, and I could put have an amendment drafted in our office back there for any bill that's still left to be heard. I could have it drafted. I could have it back in probably 15 minutes. I could probably have an amendment back for a bill while we're sitting here in 15 minutes. So it's really a nimble program because there's going to be somebody back in Pierce. If it's still Friday, they're still working in our office to get us what we need very quickly.
Thank you. We have time for one last question.
But where is the funding and stuff, and how close is it to being put into law?
Well, that's what we're still negotiating with the governor on. She requested, well, between ongoing and one-time funds, about $3.5 million. And as we looked at every other state, that's never cost that much, including the states that didn't have legalized marijuana. That makes a big difference in how you do your program. Does your state have legalized marijuana or does it not? Because ours doesn't, right now, when we have any marijuana for law enforcement brings in, they can test it simply for, does it have THC in it or does it not? That's all they have to do. If we put a hemp program in, now we have to be able to differentiate the levels of THC. That costs more money. So they were asking for, and again, this is all negotiation, so we may or may not agree on what the governor, but they were asking for, like the health lab needs a new tester that can test down to the 0.03% THC. We found out yesterday that SDSU has a DEA compliant lab, but they'll have one in a month and a half. So we think we don't need a new piece of equipment. SDSU has it already. So there's a lot of stuff like that. As far as the funding, there's probably going to be some one-time funding. That's all we really want. I think there'll be a little bit of ongoing, but again, it's the negotiations. Don't know how much will be, but I don't think it will be the $3.5 million.
Where is that funding coming from?
It'll be from the general fund.
General fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that $3.5 million, could they take some of that, like maybe $500,000 that they find they don't need, and include the teachers' salaries so that our teachers would get us, and not have it go to other places, like put an amendment on it so that the administrations of the schools can do what they want, but put it exactly so that it only goes towards our teachers' salaries?
Well, we could do anything, but that probably wouldn't have a situation. You know, we're aware those issues are always at the top of priority. We may talk about other things, but in reality, this is not the top priority. You know, the education funding, the Medicare providers, and the state employees are always the top priority.
But that goes around every year for those teachers, but nothing ever happens for them.
Well, stuff happens for them. A couple of years ago,
This year? Yeah, a few years back, they added, but like I say, I feel that wasn't always given just to the teachers. It was given and the other people used it. How about bringing it back again and putting an amendment on it just for teachers?
Probably won't happen. You understand that this legislature, we don't pay teachers. We fund education.
I know.
And we fund education. Remember, we fund them at, I think, a 36% level in the nation. We fund education, 36th in the nation.
Yeah.
Our teachers are still down in the 48th level of being paid.
Right.
So you just understand how that works.
Right.
Now, when we did put this half-cent sales tax on, we did put rules in there that says this must go to teachers. Most we've ever done. There's a lot of debate about it at the time. Is this too much of the legislature paying teachers? You know, it's not being, we're kind of crossing a line that a lot of people talk about. But we fund education. We don't pay teachers.
One other question. Did the daylight savings time thing come up again this year, and where's it at? I read Mal Olson's piece in the paper the other day about cutting the blanket off and moving the top to the bottom, and I thought that was a pretty good piece.
Yes, it did come back, and the House killed it. You killed it by one vote.
Bring it up next year.
Can I speak to that? My seatmate he lives up in the northwest part of the state, and he says if we pass this, he said I'm on West Virginia. If the South Dakota, if we pass this law, I've got people in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, and which they all kind of intersect. He said I'll probably have 4 different times I have to be concerned about. What time is it? My thought on that, I voted against it because I really don't feel it should be state by state. I think it should be regionalized, or more importantly, nationwide, which probably never would happen. But if you carve out a state, and for those people that live up against those state borders, and I call them, I say, can we meet at 7:30 in the morning? Your time or my time? Daylight saving time, or what time are we on? It creates such a problem. And then if you, in a whole bunch of areas, so that's the reason why I voted against it this year. It'll be back again.
Okay. Because I know that, like you say, if you're at the end of the time zone, like Rapid City, they're dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on
right.
now.
Yeah.
And then when it goes on, then they're better. But
right.
It just should be one way or the other. So many states now, they said, have gone to, like you say, it should be regional, maybe not statewide.
Right.
They have, a lot of the states have already dropped daylight savings.
Right. Right. I think it'll happen someday, but I think we're ready for it yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Any comments?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thank you, Josh. One is, I just share with everyone what a tremendous impact the B-21 bomber coming to our air base in western South Dakota is going to have for South Dakota. It's billions of dollars of infrastructure, it's thousands of jobs, it's changes to the schools, it's a tremendous positive for our state. And lastly, I'd like to emphasize that we've really dealt heavily with mental health in our state this year. There was a summer study from which 7 bills came out and a resolution to improve and use telehealth when possible and improve service for those that have mental health crises, at dealing with them closer to home when possible, at not transporting people to the Human Services Center, that by the time their transporter gets back home, they're called to come pick them up again. So there's a tremendous need. And Senate Bills 18 and 19 were both passed on consent in Health Human Services last year. Last year, this is the regulations for mental health providers. It was very heavily contested last year. This bill was 59 pages long. And it was the members within the mental health community that were contesting this, try to change the regulations of their own industry. Through their leadership and their membership, they worked on this, and it came without any dissent, and it passed. Last year we discussed it the whole term. It was the first bill we took, and the last night we were there, we stayed 2 hours late on this mental health bill. They worked these out within their own community and brought it back and had tremendous support. It's coming to the House tomorrow, but I anticipate it passing because there's no opposition to this bill. So I commend them, and I know it's going to serve our people better.
Thank you.
Monday, yes. Yeah, I'm not even.
Senator Klum, would you like to make any closing comments?
Well, I thank everyone for coming out this year again. It's always good to hear from you. But, you know, our emails have been, Representative Skimmon said, very active this year. So it's, people are aware of what's happening. They're staying informed. So that's always really good to see. I appreciate, and I know I've said it before, I appreciate District 20 so much. I really, truly mean that. It's not just lip service. I say, when I go and talk with my colleagues from all over the state, they come and they just, oh, we just got so hammered, or, you know, I just can't make everyone happy back home, or they're just always on me or something. I get we may disagree on things here and that, but we're always respectful. I've never felt unsafe at a Cracker Barrel. I have colleagues that do sometimes. It's just crazy what's out there. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart how good this district is, even if we don't always agree, and we never always will, but we can at least disagree respectfully, and we can talk and we can have a civil dialogue. And I think that's very important in this day and age. You should look across the nation and everything. Even in our capital sometimes, it's really tough to have good conversations sometimes. We do work hard. We'll finish this year with a good balanced budget. We always will. We always will. But, you know, it's always good to maintain good open dialogue. I had dinner with a Democrat the other night, just him and me. It was great. You know? Who would have thought it? But, you know? I was going to, but no. No, it's a very good time. I appreciate all my colleagues. We all bring something important to the team. Listening to each other and learning from each other is something that is very important to do. And I look forward to continuing to serve you. As we know, this is our election year. This is our last Cracker Barrel, so I will be going out and running for. I thank you all for coming. I look forward to seeing you out throughout the summer. Thanks.
See if I can get something out here. I do want to thank you for the opportunity, and for those of you that are here. And I've talked to a number of you. I've had emails from a number of you. You know, this has been a learning experience for me. However, I always say that we all bring life experiences with us. And with that being said, I hope I continue to learn to listen more than speaking, because I just find that I don't know a lot about anything. And you know, being on appropriations, I find that there isn't a unnecessary need out there. And I'll just give you an example. Where we're at right now is if you look at the cost of running government currently, and we're in the process of budget setting, we have, for the next fiscal year, approximately $27 million. But that does not include, I mean, if you remember, the governor recommended 0 increase on education, community service providers, and government employees. Nothing. If we were to raise those 3 categories by 2%, we would need to come up with $34 million. And if we have 27 million and we need 34, that's not going to happen. So we are still looking for ways to cut the cost of government. And I'll give you an example. And I use this quite often when I talk to people. We had, in joint appropriations, we heard testimony from the dementia group. And there's an organization out there, and we all, probably most of us, know someone or maybe have a family member that has dementia and or had or passed away. We heard testimony from a number of those people, and they wanted to have within the Department of Health, a coordinator for dementia, because that, see, are we just now discovering and we named it dementia? I joke and say maybe we used to call them senile, way back when. I remember that growing up on the farm. But anyway, it was the cost of government. And I said, we need government to provide that. Well, I thought to myself, okay, it's needed. Okay, another ongoing cost. That's important. But how many of those do we and can we afford? And so all of a sudden you start prioritizing. And you say, okay, is that more important than the CSOs? And we need court service officers badly. We need probation officers badly. We have a meth problem. We have a drug problem. We need rehabilitation centers. We need people that can work in there. They need to be trained. That's another layer of government that is that more important than dementia? Don't know. Ask someone that's dealing with one or the other, and you know what side they're going to lean on. So, with that being said, I can just share with you that we're looking at in state government, where can we cut, or where should they cut, and taking those dollars and putting it into those areas that we feel important, and we call them the big 3: education, community service providers, and state employees. We've got a problem in all 3. And again, 2%, $34 million. So, can we get there? Well, I think we're going to get part. We're going to get part there. That's the goal. But there's some things that's going to have to be let go, and there's going to be money that's not going to be happy. We already know that. But that's our plan. We've got 3 days, 4 days, whatever, to figure it out. We determine what a day is. Right. But we'll get there. We'll end up having a balanced budget by next Thursday.
Just quickly, I'd like to add that in this state, with low tax and struggling to meet the budget ends, unlike Washington, our focus is on what we have in common and working together for the people of South Dakota. So that's where our focus is. It's not Republican, Democrat. It's on the issues that face the people of this state and doing all we can with the funds that we have to serve the needs of South Dakota.
Thank you. I would just like to make one quick comment. We're so fortunate to have the folks that we do representing us. They are accessible. They listen. They may not always agree, but I can reach out to them. They'll get back to me. And I so appreciate that in my job. For those of you that don't know, I'm the county auditor, and I have had a couple of bills that have been very contentious. And that is not the case in all of South Dakota. Not all districts have that luxury. And so I just want to let these gentlemen know how much that is appreciated. So if you could join me in thanking them for what they do. Thank you to all of you that came out on this beautiful day. Have a great rest of your day.
Did you get everything collated?
Once a year. I totally appreciate it. I was just there maybe later. Chat about it.